All right, guys, fire away.
Jim, this is Nikki Jetballer from the Washington Post. After bringing in Dontrell Inman, how do you feel about the depth of the receiving corps currently?
Well, right now that's really what we have is depth, obviously. We got a lot of young guys that haven't played a lot, so, everybody's got a shot, and that's really where we're at, right? We're looking at a depth chart and go out there. We haven't practiced hardly yet, so we don't really know what we've got, and we'll find that out in the next couple of weeks.
Having worked with Alex Smith in San Francisco, what have you seen from him just in his progress, and are you at all surprised by where he's at right now after going through the injury he did?
No, I'm not surprised where he's at. I mean, the reason we brought Alex to San Francisco because we knew what he was, his mental makeup, what kind of guy he is, how tough he is mentally. So none of it's surprising. He looks good. It's short of a miracle that he's out there and he's going through workouts and doing stuff with the training staff that everybody else is doing, and it's just short of a miracle, I guess.
Thank you.
Go ahead, Sam.
Hey, Jim, Sam 48 with the Washington Post. Thanks for doing this. As you kind of look at Terry's last year, what can he build upon, and kind of what does he need to do to take that next step?
Well, you look at him last year, he's a young player. Not a lot of people had expectations of what he was going to be. Teams that they played didn't know him or weren't really concerned about him. So that has something to do with your success in your early years. But once you have some success in this league, it's going to be about expectations, managing expectations, and it's going to be about now you're definitely going to get more attention, especially when you're the number one guy coming into a season. Totally different than when you just sort of catch some balls, you go through the year, and oh, by the way, he caught so many balls at the end of the season, and everybody's like, okay. So, those are all part of it. His growth from year one to year two will be all about the expectations and managing them, and then getting better as a player.
What do you think those expectations managed should be?
Well, our expectations that he gets better every day. He improves. He learns the offense. He becomes a reliable player for the quarterback to throw the ball to. Those are our expectations. Those are his expectations. Everyone else's expectations are, he's a star receiver. He's going to catch a lot of balls. He's going to be, he's going to catch 100 balls. That's all the outside things. We're just worried about in daily improvement, his growth as a player, and then his ability for the quarterback to trust him.
Thank you.
Hey, Coach, this is JP Finley from NBC Sports Washington. I wanted to ask just about the rookie Antonio Gibson. What do you see in him, and how does he fit maybe with your receiver group?
He's a big body. He's got range. He's long. He's got some ball skills. He plays faster than his time. I know everybody looks at a time from a 40-yard dash, but we pay no attention to that. It's all about how fast you get down the field. He's side by side with a guy who runs a 4.3 something or a 4.4 something, and if he's at 15 yards running a route at the same speed, it doesn't matter what he was timed in, and that's how he plays. He's got stride length. He can play with people around him. He can play fast with bodies around him because he's strong. That's what we liked when he was coming out. How he fits into our world, we like to throw the ball down the field, and the bigger you are, the farther down the field you are, is a little easier target for the quarterback to throw the ball to. And bigger players have had success in this system in the past, down the field. Big targets, you can throw the ball up and they can go get it.
Hi, Jim. Random Walker with The Athletics. It's nice to meet you. As far as your assessment goes, when you look at the wide receiving core, where do you feel like there may be holes or deficits? What do you feel like this wide receiving core may be lacking in your opinion?
Well, we're young, the experience. We don't have a lot of experience. So from that standpoint, it's hard to tell what we're lacking totally because we're not quite sure. We haven't been down the road yet to see what we have. Just like any young player, they're all going to get better. How much they get better, how they fit into the offense, those kinds of things are all down the road ahead of us. But the group is, there's some talented players in there. We have speed. We have some bigger body guys with some length. We have a couple guys that fit into the way we think about how the position should be played. So there's some diversity there that hopefully over the next couple weeks we can round it down to, okay, here's how we're going to go play the games and who we're going to do what with, and we're going to go have some success. And the quarterback, has somebody that he can throw the ball to.
Randy Jordan was telling us that he was quizzing Antonio Gibson about his role, and he was telling him the answer for the F, basically. And so he was saying that he's being asked, obviously going between wide receiver and running back. I'm just curious, what have you guys been asking him to do thus far? What has it been like working with Antonio? What are your expectations for him?
He's a good kid. Obviously, he played in college, mostly receiver, so that's where he's comfortable. So coming out in my group, being in meetings with my group, he's comfortable. It's natural for him. He's done a lot of those things already. He's just got to develop, just like all young guys. He's got to develop. The more you can do in this league, he's the kind of guy that can line up in different spots. He's a matchup issue for the defense. So those are the kind of guys that you can take advantage of if they can do multiple things.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
You mentioned you can make some important roster decisions. Those are going to come at you pretty fast here. With a limited amount of practice time, how do you structure that to make sure you get done what you need to get done?
Well, we're going to start with the process of giving everybody the ability to compete, repetitions, the ability for guys to show what they can do. And that's on us as coaches to put them in the spot so we can expose them, either good or bad. And then we just go from there with communication, from the head coach to the personnel people on down through Scotty and me, of deciding who the best players are going to be moving forward and then how our depth fits in behind it. And this will be a unique year. Your depth is going to have to show up a lot more this year than it has in the past, just because, one, we're in a shorter time frame to get ready. So they're not going to be able to play as many snaps early in the season. They're not going to be ready to do that. So you're going to have your depth play a little bit more, which in our case should help us gain experience, right? Should help us develop more than one or two players. And that should help us down the road. And through all those communications that we have, we'll come up with those guys and then we'll move forward.
And then Dwayne worked with the receivers on his own. I know you weren't obviously allowed to be there for that, but did you get a sense for maybe if some stuff has been accomplished already just in terms of getting that chemistry down?
Yeah, we went through an off-season program. We installed how we wanted things to look and how we wanted things to be run. And obviously we're not out there with them, so we're not tweaking or refining or having communication with them about how they specifically do something in that moment in time. But they have a mindset or a mind frame that they've been given, and then they go out there and work. The way we have judged it so far is when we started back up at the beginning of the week with these guys and we started throwing the ball, we started to see things that have been developed already. It wasn't the first day of something that they've never done before. So that tells us right there that they took the information and they went out there and they started to work on it. And then now it's just a process of refining it and going forward.
Hey Jim, Ben Standig with The Athletic. Thanks for your time. You mentioned obviously the youth of this receiver group. That's not just the frontline guys like Terry McLaurin and Steven Sims. It's even the guys who are the depth guys like Cam Sims and Darvin Kidsey who have been around. In other years, we may look at them as like, well, they're going to be real roster long shots. But with the group you have now, it's possible they could make the team and maybe even get involved. How did you get yourself how did you kind of learn them as a new coach coming in when they don't have a lot of recent tape for some of these guys?
Well, really, like you said, there's not a lot of tape on some of these guys, and I don't know them. So the process is going through, giving them the information of how we want it to look, not just what we want them to do, but how they do it. And then again, we've started this week with, okay, who has taken that information and gone with it, and where are they in the process, how far down the road. And then the final thing that you mentioned there is we have a clean slate. Besides Terry, who we know can play and has been out there, the rest of the group is really young, and they're all in a competition right now for those next receiver spots. We understand Terry can play. We knew that. That's why he was drafted higher. We know that his role is going to be there. We just have to make him as good as we can make him, as fast as we can make him with the quarterback. But the rest of the guys are all in a competition. I got no idea who the next two guys are right now.
Part of that group is obviously Steven Sims and Trey Quinn, who were the primary slot receivers last year. Steven really obviously came on at the end of the year, and Trey's been around for a couple of years. What's your sense of them in particular? What are they? Do you view them as being guys more than just slot? Because maybe outside, or how do you kind of view them in this mix? Again, understanding that everything right now is sort of starting to scratch.
Yeah, again, we're starting early, so they are slot players. That's what they are comfortable doing. That's what they've done in the past, and they made a team as a slot player in the past, and these coaches knew what they were doing, and they evaluate. We're just going to go through that process. We know that they can play inside. How much they can play outside, we're going to work through, see how they fit, and see who doesn't come forward outside, and it may be Steven, and it may be Trey, and if it's not, then it'll be some of these other younger guys that have developed outside, and then we can strictly keep them inside, which there's advantages to both. There's advantages to having inside players and outside players because you ask them to do specifically different things. You train them different. So that part of it is not a handicap. It's actually that if it goes that way, that means that we have a couple more outside guys and we can specifically train two guys to play inside. It's going to take two guys in there the whole year as we go down the road.
Thank you.
Hey Jim, Pete Haley with NBC Sports Washington. Most of our questions have to do with these guys as pass catchers, but how do you feel about them as run blockers? This is a team that has a lot of running backs, and do you think you have enough in terms of helping out on the edge in that aspect, especially losing Kelvin Harmon?
Yeah, Kelvin hurt because he's a big body guy, a physical guy. That was going to be somebody we're going to use more in the run game. But we got some other bigger guys who are going to be able to do it. It's not nearly as prevalent as it was 10 years ago in the NFL, the run game for the receivers blocking. Now there's so much built into the pass options in the run game. So guys are still playing in their element. And still affecting the defense without having to run down there and put their face on somebody on a block. Now, we're going to have to do that, don't get me wrong, but there's a lot less of that that's going on in this league.
Hey, Jim, Les Carpenter at the Washington Post. It's good to meet you.
Hey, Les.
Next question, just, is it an advantage in any way, or is it maybe kind of a joy as a coach to come in cold with this team and this offense and have a bunch of guys who are young? Is there anything to that you can mold them any way you want? I don't know.
There's good and bad in everything, they say, right? So the good part of that is, they're young and things make sense to them because they haven't been trained another way. So there is kind of a clean slate. There's an open mind to the process, where some older guys have been through it and their process is pretty clean. They know what they're doing, how they do it. And then the other side of that coin is obviously experience. And obviously when you have players that have played, they have experience and you don't have to teach them as much, and it's a little bit easier on the whole process when guys have been down the road and have done it before. It's fun. I coach them all the same. Guys at different levels, and I've had some great players in this league late in their careers and have had some great relationships in the coaching aspect of it. I don't coach them any different. Their process fits into my process, and then we go from there.
Thanks.
Jim, Matt Pester from the Washington Times. I just wanted to ask about earlier, when you said about Antonio's 40 time, did you mean Gibson or Danny Golden?
I'm not sure. Yeah, you'd have to probably pull up the thing. I think we were talking about Gandy Golden.
Yeah. Okay, got it. Anyway, so obviously, competition will kind of show you what you have, but do you think it's possible, obviously you know what you kind of have in Terry McLaurin, but do you think it's possible that a reliable second option emerges here? Like, are you confident in the group that someone maybe besides McLaurin will step up, or how do you feel about kind of the overall of what you have?
Yeah. Crystal ball, I wish I could look in the future and tell you that I got a definite, but I don't. And that's part of the fun of this whole thing as it is anyway. There'll be somebody that emerges, and hopefully that one person we're sitting here talking about next year has already had a breakout season, just like we were talking about one guy from last year. And hopefully that's the way it goes. Hopefully it's maybe more than one or two guys, and then we can build a solid depth receiving core moving down the road.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Chris Russell, go ahead.
Hey, Coach, how are you? Thanks for doing this.
Good.
Quick question for you. With no preseason games, obviously no OTAs, we always talk about quarterbacks and receivers developing that timing. And when you throw a new system for everybody that everybody's learning, how difficult is it going to be to get on that same page, to get in that sync and rhythm? And do you feel you have enough time with this slow ramp-up period, and again, no preseason games, to get all that done before the season?
As a coach, absolutely not. Obviously, we want an off season and we build through training camp, so we go to the first game and we have some preseason games to see how the guys react, because games are totally different than practice. Obviously, from our standpoint, we'd love to have all that, but we don't. But we're also realistic. We know that it's going to not be as clean as if you were in the system and you'd been playing with the quarterback, and that isn't a disadvantage for us. So in the first few weeks of the season, we're going to have to find ways to win games. We're going to have to find ways to continue to improve while winning games to give ourselves a chance. And then, again, the longer and farther we go down the road, the better off we'll be. But it's going to be a little bit of a challenge early in the season.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Hey, Jim, John Kine from ESPN. Thanks for doing
Hi, John.
this. I was with Terry McLaurin, and just what was the growth that you saw in his game when you were going back and watching film, and then what did you want to see him add to his game as you move forward?
I didn't totally hear the question, but I think I got the gist of it. What I saw from Terry last year in his game, and then what I think he needs to improve. If I'm following you, if that's the line that okay. So last year, when I watched him play last year, he surprised me with his play speed, how well he played with people around him, how well he played fast, how well he got to where he needed to go against good players, challenging players, and how well he finished on occasion with people around him. That's the hard thing about this. You can go out there and practice and throw balls around the guys, but in games, somebody's standing next to you and they're hitting the shit out of you. So that's a totally different thing. And that really stood out to me evaluating him. He did that. He did a really good job of that last year for a young guy. Usually that takes guys a little bit time to learn and be comfortable with. Moving forward, he's going to have to improve his game from a route standpoint. He's going to have to be able to do more in the route tree. He's going to have to be moved around more. All those things. When you have a number one guy, it's all about how defenses are going to try to defend him. And that's where, for him to keep growing, the ability for him to move around, expand his route tree, challenge defenders inside and out, that's where the growth is going to happen. That's where he needs to grow. 1 year of playing outside and running some routes, that you're not going to do that for the next 8 years. If you're a good player and you're number one in this league, you're going to have to develop your route tree and you're going to have to go inside. And he's going to have to do that.
And what kind of pressure or burden is there on him when, as you talked about, there is a young group around him, and there's questions here, there's questions there. He's the one guy people are going to look at. What kind of burden does that put on him?
Well, that's the challenge, right? Last year they didn't have any of that. So this expectations, and that's along the lines of the meaning I was talking about earlier about expectations, but that's really what I'm talking about. It's the pressure of being the number one guy.
Thank you.
You're welcome.